We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. We meet here every other Wednesday in honor of William Mackey Jr., Louis Ray Rivera, Professor Amos Wilson, Brother Gil Noble, Alton Maddox, may he rest in peace, Brother Assad, Brother Harold, Minister Khalid, Professor Renopo Rashidi, Malcolm X, and all the historians, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, George Simmons, Chancellor Williams, and all the historians who gave up fame and fortune because they believed in bringing information to the global community. They burned the midnight oil. They studied. They didn't have to take that route. They could have went the route the way of others and said later for it and kept their good jobs. But they didn't do that. So we salute them. Miss Leola Maddox, who had an old car, and she used to come from Teaneck, New Jersey, in that car. And she drove all the way to the United African Movement. That's why I still have my hat. And she believed in bringing people together every Wednesday. And she ate her dinner in the UAM because she wanted to bring people together. And we never want to forget Mr. Viola and the UAM. So we keep these lectures going because it's nothing like the physical of seeing people and talking and being together, good, bad, or indifference, differences of opinion, whatever. The UAM was good for that, and every Wednesday they had it. And it's a funny thing where we would try to get people to come to the UAM and go to different lectures and get some black history from noted historians that really studied, and we couldn't get them to lectures. They always had something to do. But in this age of Trump, everybody got something to say. You can't keep people, they coming out of the woodwork because of the situation they created. And the people rose up and changed it. Now everybody got something to say. But when it came down to the jab, the stab, you couldn't get nobody to open up their goddamn mouth. Not only they pushed it, but say something now. They created a situation, and now they got a problem with it. Ugly nonsense. So we have our lectures for these people. Great historians. So, for the people in the Zoom audience, give yourself a great big hand. Thank you for every other week coming on Zoom from throughout the United States, Detroit, Cleveland, and getting some history. And the people in the audience, give yourself a great big hand for coming out. We're going to turn the camera over to the Amos collection. And this is to help Sababu and African World Info Systems. We have Blueprint for Black Power, the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward the reclamation of the African mind. We got black-on-black violence, the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination, African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order, issues of manhood in black and white, awakening the natural genius of black children, Louis Ray Rivera's classic Jazz in Jail, and S.K. Damiana, Distorted Troops. And we have one of the original members from Mackey's here, Brother Colvin. Good to see you. Black on black violence, the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. And everybody talking about black on black violence. Big city mayors, governors, oh, you name it. And the title of the book is The Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. So whether you know it or not, we're still being dominated by white folks. And if you think that ain't the truth, look what's happening today. Dominated. One person come on the scene and everybody going crazy. In honor of Louis Ray Rivera, when Professor Mackey left us, Louis Ray Rivera took up the mantle, and he would come down here, right, Colvin? And he would speak for hours and hours. And we would walk him home, and he only lived a couple of blocks. And Louis Ray would talk for another hour and a half. And he only lived down the block. So we never want to forget Louis Ray Rivera. So I have some other publications. It's for educational. You get these books, you read, you do your study, and you get information because the information is in the books. In honor of Dr. Ben, black man in the Nile and his family. They didn't have too many computers. Dr. Ben had to take newspaper clippings and go into the origin of the African family. Goes into the hieroglyphics, the Sphinx, and he went all through Kemet. So we want to honor Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. African slavery in Latin America and the Caribbean. It didn't just happen in the United States. It happened globally. So I just happened to pick this up. Dr. Randy Short, African Slavery, the Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Dr. Randy Short, who has a PhD from Harvard, and he can't even get a job. Without Sanctuary, Pictorial History, and now you ain't gonna hear too much about reparations, not as much because George Soros is gone, and the Democrats is not in. So the reparations deal did not go far because they tried to play it. You have the hangings. You have the lynchings. You have the roasts, the documentation, the postcards, Lynchburg, Virginia. And they still, the only thing they say is a study. Let's get another study together. Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilization. And he'll tell you, we didn't have it together in Africa, Land, and we don't have it together here. He will tell you the mistakes we made as a people. Dr. Chancellor Williams. The Unspoken Alliance, Israel's secret pact, a secret relationship with apartheid South Africa. In honor of Louis Ray and Brother Truss Graham from the African Echo Study Group, Jews, God, and History. I want to thank these two gentlemen for bringing this book up because a lot of events that they claimed happened didn't happen. They were created. And Dr. Ben and them brought that out. Professor Mackey, you know everybody. In honor of Big Harold, who left us too soon, Edward Black, the transfer agreement, the untold story of the secret pact between the Third Reich and Jewish Palestine. In honor of Big Harold, and he left us too soon. The manufacturing of a president, the CIA's insertion of Barack Hussein Obama, and they just tried to pull another one off with Mrs. Emhoff. The manufacturing of a president, the CIA's insertion of Barack Hussein Obama. And if you got a problem, you have to talk to Wayne Mansfield. Our girl, now, if she was running for president, it might have been a different story. Cynthia McKinney, when China sneezes from the coronavirus, global, political, economic, to the lockdown. Now, let's find out if President Trump is going to mention S-whole countries. How the U.S. creates S-H-I-T whole countries by Cynthia McKinney. So we want to honor her. And she's working in Bangladesh because she cannot get employment in the United States. And them same people down in Georgia got rid of her. Now they should have put her up. Not that we don't want a woman president, we just don't want the one that was running. Dr. Scott Whitaker's medicine. The causes and solutions to disease, malnutrition, and the medical sins that are killing the world. We want to talk about Dr. Scott, and he's always on Darren Muhammad's show. So we have this book, and you could also get it on Amazon, but Dr. Scott out of Georgia did an excellent job. I don't know what happened to my other book, but I know it's probably in the thing, but I want everybody out of this is going to be the third book I'm reading on George Soros, the man behind the curtain. The inside network of George Soros and the man behind the curtain. And when you look at the person that's pulling the strings that controls the Democratic Party. And I have another book on how 60s radicals, Hillary Clinton and Soros took control of the Democratic Party. You get this book and it's relatively cheap, and it'll tell you all that money's going around. George Soros. Nobody wants to talk about the man behind the curtain. Io Kamati, the irritated genie. Jews are the problem, and his second blockbuster, Jews are the problem, the psychology of the Jew. We want to honor Io Kamati, because she came out with these publications and they're small reads, but it's going to take you a whole lot of time to do the research on this. The capitalism on a ventilator, the impact of COVID-19 in China and the U.S., Robert Kennedy, the real Anthony Fauci, and the truth about CO-19. And it's good we have somebody in there that's going to talk about the destruction that happened during the 19. So I'm glad that Robert Kennedy has a position in there. You have to get these two books. And not only that, he came out with two more. Vax versus unvax, let the science speak. And this is Dr. Brian Hooker, doctor. And the Wuhan cover-up, the terrifying bioweapons arms race. Robert Kennedy and a bunch of doctors, so these books is in. Dr. Rand Paul, Deception, the Great CO cover-up. and this is Congressman Rand Paul, and if you go on YouTube, you can see the congressional hearings when Rand Paul was asking all the questions and they could not answer. Dr. Edward Dow, causes unknown. The epidemic of sudden death, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And you talk about Project 25, get that nonsense out of here. Because you didn't talk about Project 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So we want to salute Dr. Edward Dow. And he has the pictures of the youngsters, all young, in the prime of their life, collapsing. Just collapsing. But ain't nobody say nothing there. Ain't nobody open up their mouth. But everybody saying something there. Edward Down, he used to work for BlackRock. This is a blockbuster. Thank you for Sky House Publishing, Robert Kennedy, Naomi Wolf, and all involved, Amy Kelly, under the Freedom of Information Act. Pfizer did not want to put the information out. They wanted to hold the information for 75 years. Under the Freedom of Information Act, they took them to court, and this blockbuster by Stephen Bannon forwarded The War Room, Pfizer's Crime Against Humanity. I don't know when I'm going to get to reading it, but I tell you, it has all the documentation. All the stuff that they wasn't going to tell you. And they have another book coming out in April called The Moderna Papers. That's in the works now. So these books is for people to buy, to get information, to do study, and to understand for your personal information. So now I have some community events, and Tad, Keisha, Ashe, Brother Black, Sister Marmar, a.k.a. Sister Marcia, and the Thorough Black Talk audience. Every Thursday on YouTube, Thorough Black Talk. That comes on 8 o'clock on Facebook, streaming live on YouTube. That's the hottest show on the East Coast. Tad and them be getting it in. Also, our Philadelphia connection, and I'm sorry, Sister Empress, I've been busy for a few weeks and I haven't been able to get on. We have Blog Talk Radio. That's our Philadelphia connection with the Million Women's March. That comes on. Brother Lumumba and the gang from Philly, that comes on every Saturday at 10:30. And the telephone number is 1319-527-6189. You can join into the conversation. They had Brother Fred Hampton's son on there, and he was talking about the Venezuelan gangs, and the brothers are getting their act together, are putting their differences to the side, because the Venezuelan gangs done invaded Chicago under the Democratic Party, and they're putting their differences aside, because it's a whole different story. Io Kamati, the Irritated Genie. Sankofa Revolutionary Radio, 95.1 FM, Birmingham, Alabama. Sankofa Revolutionary Radio with Brother Anthony Muhammad, every Monday at 10 o'clock. The Irritated Genie has a program, and he will be coming to Quincy Street, 103 Quincy on Saturday, December 7th. This is not going to be Zoom, it's for the New York audience. It's going to be a live event. It's going to be unbelievable. And he's going to be talking about his 2 books. So that's going to be December 7th, a Saturday, from 2 to 7. But get here for the New York area. So that's Io Kamati. Our Baltimore connection, powerhouse, Darren Muhammad, State of the City, comes on sometime Wednesday, sometime Thursday, but Saturday, State of the City out of Baltimore, Brother Darren Powerhouse Muhammad on Facebook Live and Instagram, one of the hottest shows, excellent, out of Baltimore. We want to salute him because he's been kicking it live. Also, every Tuesday, Dr. Aleem, your immunity project, comes on at 3 o'clock, and then it's a repeat at 7 o'clock at night where they do it at 3 o'clock, and then they repeat it for New York, and you can see the program again at 7 o'clock, and he's telling you so much stuff about CO-19, it will rock your world. So we want to thank Dr. Aleem and your immunity project and Calfani Radio. And he's supposed to be coming on Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. So Dr. Aleem is giving up some excellent information. So you go into that. Our Newark, New Jersey connection, African Echoes with Brother Trust Graham and the gang, Brother True and them. African Echoes comes on every Friday at 8 o'clock. And they're doing the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward the African mind. Brother Trust is the mediator of that group, and Brother True and them be getting it on. But not only is that a one-punch, gut punch, we have they give you a jaw punch Saturdays at 1:30, the Know Thyself Study Group. And the guys out of Asbury Park, Brother True and them. Trust is also the mediator of that study group. And they're doing the destruction of black civilization. So we want to salute African Echoes and the Know Thyself Study Group with Brother Trust Graham. That's the 1-2 punch on getting your study together. The Simotap organization with Dr. James McIntosh, Betty Dobson, Richard Dean Theater, that comes on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and people are just starting to get used to it. They had Garvey, spokesman for talking about Garvey, but they have a very important event coming up, and that's going to be, I believe, the 18th at Simotap. No, it's going to be the 18th at
the 16th.
The 16th, and that's going to be at the center in Queens.
Robert R. Johnson.
What is it, Mike?
Robert R. Johnson.
Robert R. Johnson. They're going to have an event. It's Your Table, Simotap's 37th annual luncheon. That's at the Robert Ross Johnson Family Life Center, 17217 Linden Boulevard. We got Gloria Brown Marshall, Bob Lower, and Baba Takango. I can't get the other name. And that's Saturday the 16th from 12 to 4. Go into the Simotap organization, and they will give you information. You have to RSVP so they know what's going on. That's going to be an excellent event. Also, they're going to talk about the Good Times disgusting cartoon where they're degrading black people. So even if you're talking about reparations, we can't even stop Hollywood and these Hollywood moguls along with some black folks with that disgusting portrayal of what they did to black folks and that Good Times. So cancel your Netflix. Of course, it's disgusting. And we got the nerve to be talking about they're going to give us some money. They only give people they respect reparations. If they don't respect you, they ain't giving you nothing. All elections that the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club has is on YouTube. You could go on YouTube. If you disagree with any of the speakers, no problem. Do your research, get your books, read, and find out what's happening. So all our lectures is on there. The Sahel region in Africa, They're fighting the French and kicking the French out and causing big problems for the European colonial masters who feel that they can just take. So the Sahel region is doing some big things. This is a 10-part series that we have did already. And it's going to continue. We have Brother Mike with the meaning of whiteness in America. That's going to be no matter how many series, it's going to continue. Dr. Fred Munderson on Africa, that series is going to continue. So anybody that has a chance to come to the Mackey's group, you will be able to continue your series to keep going. It will not stop. So our keynote speaker tonight has been with Africans, helping Africans, and the Mackey's group for years. We love him, and he agreed to come to give you some more information on what goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, give a great big hand to Dr. Arthur Lewis. We're going to finish this lecture at 9:30. 9:30, the lecture will be gone because we got to take Doc uptown. Thank my beautiful wife for handling the camera. Kiss, please.
Okay, good evening, and I would like to extend my appreciation and to always extend credit to Ray, his crew, and all of the other individuals who come and support Mackey's 33 lecture series. And all of us are important. So again, I just want to thank everybody for coming, for participating. And I'm glad that I'm one of the individuals that's given the opportunity to talk. I have a handout. The handout is 6 pages, but it's only 2 or 3 pages of reading. Some of the handout is redundant. And the purpose of including some of the handout in the redundancy is to keep hitting the point that this is something that we have to always keep in our mind, what's in the redundancy. After I present the material, it'll cover items and issues in the United States and outside the United States. And I'm requesting that for question and answers, that to participate on the internet and here make a contribution. So the question and answers, hopefully it will come from the audience and it should cover everything. Just because I may present something that's international, you have the elections that just came up, you gotta talk about the elections. We have to talk about the local things that's happening in the city, even though we're talking about what's happening to Africa, because it's all important. So there's no such thing as, well, we're only talking about international. We have to have a mixture. And a brother asked, you know, my definition of Pan-Africanism. And I said to him, I said, to me, you have 3 parts as one concept, is that you must first, to be a good Pan-Africanist, as far as I'm concerned, you must first take care of yourself and your family, children, grandchildren, whatever it is. Yourself and your family. That's the most important part of Pan-Africanism, because if you're not alive and you're not taking care of your family, then you're not a Pan-Africanist, because to be a Pan-Africanist is to take care of African people, the young and the old. So anybody who considers herself a good Pan-African, just look at each other and say, am I taking care of my children? Am I taking care of my spouse and the grandchildren? So that I give you a bachelor's degree for that. Then I said, to get your master's degree in Pan-Africanism, you must extend that behavior where you take care of African people. We're talking about taking care of African people. We're not talking about to be negligent of others who you would consider not as Africans. So it doesn't have anything to do with someone who we don't identify as African. Let me just say, you take care of yourself. So to get your master's degree, you have to try, if you have any energy left or resources, to work with others in your community to make your community better. City, state, community. And one of the examples I would give is, and if anybody in question and answer, you got to correct. Say, no, Dr. Wilson, it didn't go that way. You made a mistake. So we're not here to be perfectionists. Marcus Garvey was able to influence the African community here. But if you look back, you will notice that much or many of his talks, interaction, was with the community through churches. And we know it's the women who run the churches, the women who make the churches go. Whether it's cleaning, whether it's collecting the monies, whether it's doing a lot of programs. That doesn't take anything away from the male, but it's the women. So if it wasn't for the fact that there was a good woman, African women structure to make sure he could get into the churches and get into many of these spheres to even be heard. So that's an example of how everyone competes and contributes. The other thing is, in terms of contribution, and we'll get into it in one of the handouts, because we understand that we're not always going to be here in this form called life, that we're all going to transition into another realm, whatever that realm is. So in order for you to perpetuate human beings called children, you have to have children. So that's why it is critically important that you take care of your family or children. Because if you don't have a structure for perpetuation, you're going to not be here. And so we make an analogy, because some people don't know the importance of family and children, is what happens if human beings, Africans, we talk about Africans, but it's all human beings. In nature, you can have all the sex you want, whatever that means, but you cannot, in the process of having sex, the woman cannot be made pregnant. So what is going to happen to your race in 100 years? You won't be here, right? So as simple as maintaining families and keeping them intact for the next generation. So that's very important. So you get your bachelor's degree if you take care of your immediate family, children, aunts, uncles, etc. And then you get your master's if you then extend it into the community. But to get your PhD, you have to make a participation to help African people who are on the continent. Whoever is living on the continent, you have to be able to make a contribution to making the people on the continent better off. Whatever that is, sending money, going over and participating with your skills, lecturing, anything that you could visibly do to help African-based people. So I mean, I'm like many of you, you're going to the Caribbean and the South Pacific and these other places, and we have done work you're kind of working towards your PhD until you get on the ground and do something. Or until you send money over to now make Africa a better place. And you're doing it here by doing lectures and stuff. So you are beginning to get your PhD here by what we're doing. But to get the higher level, you gotta some kind of way directly take care of the people on the continent. You know, we all come from all parts of the earth, but the continent, we gotta make it. Okay, now let's look at the handout. 6 pages. 4 of the 6 pages are pictures. And of the 6 pages, I'm going to read 2 of them to you. You've heard them before over and over and over. And it's going to be Smedley Butler's War is a Racket, because I want to reinforce that short period of history so that you know the history of where you live in. You're living in the physical area called United States of America, controlled by white Europeans. Clear and simple. Whatever is going on in Asia, you call it Israel, that area is they call Israel. Piece of land in the western part of Asia that was given to white Europeans to get a piece to develop a country in that part of Asia. Okay. And right now, there's a war there. And in that war, a group of human beings called Palestinians are being exterminated by another group of human beings, white people who come from Europe. And they deem it a genocide, whatever your definition. Bomb the buildings, you just kill the people, burn them, everything. That country, Israel, is run by human beings. They're white people coming from Europe. They were transplanted themselves after World War II because they wanted their own country, even though Russia offered the white Jews of Europe a place within Russia, but they didn't accept it. So right now, we're not going into that in detail, but they're in the process of bombing and everything. Without the support of the United States of America. Support what? Bullets, bombs, tanks, planes, whatever you know to be military. Whatever any of the brothers and sisters here who've been in the military, you talk about it. I was never able to serve. They asked me one time, did I want to go into the war in Asia or to Iraq? And they will give my wife the $10,000 money before I go, because you know you're not coming back. Okay. But they didn't take me, as I always say, because I wanted to come in as a general. 4-star Pentagon pension. They said, that's not for black folks, okay? So I just never, it's not that I didn't want to, I didn't have an opportunity, but I wanted to live longer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the point I'm making is, Israel is a small country about the size of New Jersey, with what they say is 7,000 Jews, white Jews. They make nothing there. They don't make bullets, they don't make bombs, they don't make everything that is used by Israel, the jet fighters and everything you paid for. So the perception is going around in most of the world now. It's coming to the conclusion that which country is participating in making it possible for the genocide? The United States of America. So that's why we go through this picture over and over and over. They took it from in front of the Museum of Natural History that was down in Manhattan. They had it over for years and years when George Floyd thing was breaking. So I guess they wanted to pull away all of these visible icons that the white people have set up around the country to show who's boss. So you have Theodore Roosevelt, President of the United States. I think he was the 26th president. And he's on a horse. Museum of Natural History. So the world, most of the people coming in to New York, many of the tourists, they go through this. So they wanted the world to see this. Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, nice white immigrant coming from Europe on a horse. And to his left is an African. To tell you this is the United States of America, we on top, we subordinate the Africans. And on this side is supposed to be representation of the indigenous. So if you forget where you are, then you're in peril. Okay? That's why I use this. And I'll just mention a quick corollary that I always mention, but it repeat about the United States of America. So therefore, Israel cannot commit genocide, if that's what you want to call it, without the United States. So they're conspirators in this. Okay. So the white Jews say, Israel, but you took the United States of America that way. Why I can't do it? The Five Eyes is UK. The original so-called UK people were the Anglo-Saxon Germanic tribe that came down and went into those islands and started knocking off the Irish and the Welsh and the Scots. And another Germanic tribe went down into Spain, pushed us out of Spain. Another one went down. So all of these Europeans, basically, you can go back to these Germanic tribes. So the Five Eyes today is these five Germanic tribes. The UK, its cousin, United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. What do they all have in common? They all come from the white ancestry of the Anglo-Saxon Protestant. You call Anglo-Saxon Protestant. That Chris Hedges, in his book, in one of his lectures, says that this is his white Americans. He's ringing the bell. That's what we're trying to do here. White Americans and European are ice age cave hunters with a suit and a bed. Don't let the billionaire, because most of these billionaires' grandfathers, including Trump, got off the boat with nothing and rags. Okay. So the Five Eyes are those five countries now that collaborate with each other. That's the clique. They work together, and what they all have in common is they all come from the Anglo-Saxons. They all control large areas. The white people control the United States of America. Big piece of land. Their cousins, the Canadians, they control a big piece of land called Canada. Then the other group that came from the UK, they went into New Zealand, Australia, and they killed down the population. And they killed down that. So what Israel is doing, the UK, white people call themselves Americans, white people call themselves Canada, white people call them, they did identically the same. They went to these areas exterminating people. So they tell the Jews, you know, the world has changed, we got to do it a different way. That's just to give you an idea of who you're dealing with. You're talking all this stuff with boats and stuff. So that's why I bring this to your attention here. Of the remaining pages, four of them are visuals. Only two we're going to read. And we read this before, but I got to keep reading it. It's Smedley Butler's Intervention, Wars and Racket. takes 2 minutes to read. And this other one is that we read over and over about how the United States government is run. So that when those individuals who talk about the vote, Kamala Harris or Trump, now you take it literally or not. Dr. Lewis, did you vote? You remember what the mayor of Chicago said? Vote early and vote often. So in the morning, I take 2 votes for Kamala Harris. 2! In the evening, I do 2 votes for Trump to make it even. I'm a good American.
Right on.
Okay, let's read Smedley so that you know about the voting. And the second one would be telling you, Smedley, why are you reading this? Because he tells you in that time period from 1980, 1880 to 1900, and then coming up to the Common Era. What did United States do? What was United States as your country's foreign policy? From 1880 or 90 when they invaded the Philippines? Or in the 1880s when the United States worked with its cousin, the UK?
Yes.
In the opium trade to break down China, and then work with the second time with their cousins, the British. So the United States and Britain, they break down China in the first opium war, 18-something, 40. A couple of years later, United States with its cousin UK, and then France, they break down and break down China's culture. So the United States been over there working. Then you come up a little bit after the 18-something, 1890, United States is in the Philippines, killing people. Then he takes you the beginning of the 1900s, while the United States is trying to get land in Asia, then they go into the Caribbean, where one of my set of grandparents come from Barbados, the other come from the South, so we all come from the same thing. But if you don't understand, okay, so that's why we use Smedley Butler's War is a Racket.
Yes, sir.
Because he's telling you in a short order what the United States of America did. We read the last time, I believe I presented, and we can go over quickly and question and answer. That, and he asked why everybody is running from the United States. That from Clinton, we'll give you the documentation. After Clinton came Bush, and then after Bush came Obama, and then the Trump and Biden. In those 5 presidencies, each had 2, for 30 or 40 years. Your government has documented that U.S. government went into Libya and all these other countries, we named them, and killed about 1 million people directly. Just killed them. And that of the 1 million people they bombed and killed, from Clinton to this guy, the last guy here, 1 million. Now that's the United States people keeping credit, thing, but is it accurate? They say every one person you kill, 4 more will die from the side effects. No food stuff. So this country killed 5 million people since Clinton to here. Directly killed them. And displaced 40 million people. Well, that's Syria, Libya and stuff. So, but they just talk about this every day on US TV to remind the United States people that your money in these wars, you ain't got a damn thing to do with it. Because we make a war on you here. Remember, every government has an internal policy and an external. So that same war mentality, externally, we're suffering from it here. And then at the end, I'll take a mention of what the Secretary of State of the United States and the woman, person who's head of the one who ever take care of the money, when they went to China, what they asked China to do 6 months ago and what China's reply was. So let's get Smedley Butler out of the way. Let's get the survey about how your government runs. When we finish reading that, I'll explain the two pictures. Then we'll go through the birth rate of the European, and if it's accurate, your grandchildren are going to have the European to be worried about in the future. Your Africans may have problems with other people, but it won't be with them if this is correct. Then we're going to end up in the Sahel, as we've been talking. Okay. So we're going with Smedley Butler. Now you have it, but I'm going to skip around. So instead of being 2 minutes, it comes down a minute and a half. We're doing Smedley Butler's on intervention. He has a 6-page pamphlet, and he wrote like this because after being in the Marines, going around the world, killing people for the United States government, they wouldn't pay the veterans. And he tells you that in his other small book. Who got the money? Who were the millionaires, etc., etc. Okay. So Smedley Butler was a general in the Marines, and he was in Asia messing around with the Chinese and the Japanese in the Philippines, making Hawaii, took it away from African people, then they worked on the Caribbean. Those were the two major things that this country concentrated on. Bothering with the Asians and bothering with the Caribbean, because the Caribbean couldn't fight against the United States, it was too strong. Okay, so this is what he said about war. He summed up. He says, war is a racket. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it's about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few and the expense of the masses. Give you a summary. Taking your money, using it for war, spend 10 times more to make things than Russia, and Russia is stronger than the United States to this day, as demonstrated. How could they spend 10 times more on war material than Russia, and Russia has a superior military? Because the people who run this country, thieves. That's where they came from. That's what they know. I believe, and then the second paragraph we're going to skip. This third paragraph we're going to skip. The fourth paragraph. There isn't, so he's telling you, it's a handful. Who are these handful that's running these wars, killing people and stuff? The second thing tells you who the hell it is. Your corporations. Set out by your presidents and your Congress people. That's what it is in short. Fourth, there isn't a trick. So he's telling you it's a small group of people who are running the United States. Four, there isn't a trick in the racketeering bag that the military group is blind to. It has his fingermen. They tell you, okay, these are Russia is the bad person, China is the bad person. It points out the enemy. It's muscle men, that's him, to destroy the enemy. It's brain men to plan the war preparation, and it's big boss super nationalist capitalism. So he's telling you the capitalists behind it, the corporations. Those big corporations run by white men whose grandparents came off the ship in rags. That's the corporations they tell you. You just go to the 10, 20, 30, 40 largest corporations in the United States. That's who runs the place. We're jumping down to the third paragraph from the bottom. I suspected was just part of a racket at the time. Now I am sure of it. Like all members of the military profession, I never had a thought of my own until I left the service. My mental facilities remain suspended. When we discuss what happened to these countries, what's happened to our countries in the last 150 years, being under the Europeans. Who raped the country? The Europeans. The corporations raped it. Whatever they were stealing out of Africa, the masses of people in the United States and Europe didn't see a damn dime of it. It went right to the corporations. That's why in the United States you got a handful of billionaires. Two economists, Dr. Wolf and Hudson, they made a comment about the, what you call this thing they just did? The vote about Kamala Harris and the Trump. An economist said there are three things the white people who run this country, when a small group run it, is slavery, feudalism. That's what the European instituted here. The feudalism, like Robin Hood, they did it here. They say three things you do not discuss. Business cycles. Don't bring anything attention to the American people about business. Don't talk about anything business cycle. Don't mention anything about income distribution and inequity. Because the people might ask, why you got a handful of people who are multi-billionaires, whose grandfather got off the damn boat, and they're running everything. They're running Congress. They own everything. And why they got the money? They didn't. So they said, don't talk about income distributions because you don't want people to think about that. And the third thing was, don't mention BRICS. Don't mention BRICS to the American people. What are BRICS? Oh, BRICS are 5 countries. Brazil, let's see if we go around. Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa. They group the economies together. And those 5 economies now are bigger and stronger than the G7. The G7 is the European, that's Italy, Germany, France, the whites. You can't let them know that the Asians and the Africans, just those 5, are stronger economically than the United States. And the whites. Now they added 4 more. Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, and there's a 4th one, United Arab Emirates. That's 5 plus 4 is 9. They just had a meeting in China, in Asia, Russia, Kazan. They added on 13 more. And what are their goals? The BRICS has 3 goals. Economically, to break the West and reverse what the white people did in the Bretton Woods, which we can't go through right now. To put their militaries together to prevent the United States and NATO from going around the world invading and destroying countries like they did to Libya, like they did to this one and that one and that one. And third, they're going to make a whole new UN. So they're going to leave the United States and all those little white countries sitting right in the UN making decisions, but the Africans, the Asians, the rest of the non-white world are going to be running the world like they did before these Europeans got out of the damn cave, going around killing everybody to take your land. I'm only talking the history of what happened.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's what BRICS is about. To take the economic away from, because what happened from, say, 200 or 300 years ago, or at the time, the Bretton Woods, in 1944, when they sat down, the Europeans sat down, and you look it up and you see the Bretton Woods, you see that there were 42 nations that met. Africa, of the 42, Africa only had 3 delegates there. In the Bretton Woods and 3 delegates in the UN. The white people made the UN. It was Egypt, which was under the control of the British. It was Liberia, which was under the control of the US. And it was South Africa, which was represented by whites. The only one was Ethiopia. That was independent, and it was due to the fact that Russia made an assistance with troops, weapons and stuff to prevent Italy from taking it away from them. Those same groups were sitting there when the UN was made. The white people made the United States, they made the UN. For white people, of white people. So what the BRICS are doing is they are business in terms of trade, they're taking the trade away from the white people or colonizers. Militarily, Russia, for instance, what's the name? Israel and Iran. Iran is attacking everybody. So Israel's attacking everybody. So they figured they're going to try to knock off. Why are they against Iran? Because Iran is going to dominate the area. The United States wants to dominate the area. Everybody knows Israel's going to attack, but it's not Israel attacking. Israel and the United States are attacking. China and Russia came in to assist Iran to tell the United States it ain't going down that way. You see? So that's why when the people ask about the Sahel, we'll go into that. But the Asians and Africans says they want to help those new African countries protect themselves. So no coups. So that's the world you're living in. White people don't run anything militarily anymore. It's the Asians. It's the Asians and non-white that got control of the global economy. And they're going to make a whole new UN and leave these people over here. That's how the world has changed. That's why they tell them, keep your damn mouth shut about the BRICS. You don't want people to ask the question. Okay. And so let's end with Smedley Butler to see how the United States jammed up the Caribbean. The last paragraph. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests, 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba decent place for the National City Bank boys. Tell you who's ripping, and they're ripping you too.
100 million.
To collect revenues. I helped in raping a half-dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. The record of racketeering is long. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown, blah, 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 and he goes on. So the white people here says, in order to keep down the African people, there are a couple of things we got to do. African people have their own educational system. Segregated educational system. We got to break that up because now the black people are really teaching their kids. Plus, the black educational system was a major economic force in the community. The teachers, principals, lunch, and stuff. So the black schools was a good economic base, and they were teaching your kids, children. We did not ask to integrate white people. The government made the order to desegregate the schools. Break up that. So they break up the school system, the black. You lose all your jobs, you lose everything. Now the black students I use the word black, that the African-based students, so we're going to use the word black to denote the Africans that are here in the United States. You break up the school. Now you have to be bused to the way. Hostility. Now the school system in the country is more segregated and more dumbed down than it ever was. So we took care of that. How do you know how dumbed down the United States is towards that sin? The Pentagon said in 2017, that 71% of all young people in the country, I didn't see a breakdown to race, 71% of all the youth in the United States between the age of 17 and 23, the prime age, is not acceptable to be entered into the military. We can't take them. Why? Criminality. Talking mainly white kids. Criminality. No high school diploma. Poor health. That's what they're doing to the youth. So they segregated and destroyed the school system. You can't have black and white together. And then pass a law in the late 1830s how the United States government segregated America. When you get all the redlining, only Africans are forced into that. So I mean, you talk, South Africa is nothing compared to this monster here. This monster here. Okay? So they told you, Smelly Brother told you how we were messing with the Chinese, the Filipinos, took Hawaii from the African people, and then we came in to work on Mexico and the Central. We were raping everybody. But we don't mistreat black people. We mistreat black African people, black people. We treat them like kings. The same way you get treated here, that's how you see they've been doing to us overseas. Now we're going to read this. Takes 3 minutes to show you, and in question and answer, please, someone talk about the election. Because I can't. With me voting 2 times for Camilla, and in the afternoon, 2 times for Trump. I said, what the hell is this? You letting 7, 8, 9, 10 million? And I can't leave the country without a passport. But you let it, 15 million, whatever it is, people who, you know who you let you bring in here.
That's
you know
right.
why you did it.
That's right.
And you know that because you lost that heroin in Afghanistan. You let the fentanyl in.
$100,000.
You let the fentanyl in. That's the substitute.
That's right.
As soon as the Afghan people got rid of the United States, you know what they did with all of that fertile farmland? When the English was there, they took that fertile farmland in that plateau, which is now India and Pakistan, and they grew heroin. Cash crop, and to mess up the Chinese, and then mess up the rest of the world with it. That fertile farmland, United States went into Afghanistan, stayed 20 years. The government says, oh, we spent $4 trillion of your money. Okay. Who told you to spend $4 trillion of the Congress gave us the okay. And we paid off Congress to give us the okay. So $4 trillion on Afghan. And that period between Clinton and Biden, they admit that they use another 8 trillion. Then they say, oh my God, we got a budget deficit in the United States. Then you ask, who the hell got these trillions of dollars? You see that billionaire over there? You see that billionaire over there? You understand? So what Afghanistan did, as soon as they got rid of the United States, they shut down all the poppy, and now they're using that farmland to feed their people. That's the difference between the white people and other people who want their land. So I'll tell you, before I forget, what the Chinese told your Secretary of State and the lady that heads the Federal Reserve. They went over
Yellen.
there, yeah, they went over there and said, we can't compete with you. You're producing too much and too efficiently. We can't compete. You know what they asked them to do? Model your government, your industrial base, model it like ours in America, United States. So the Chinese said, oh, you mean to tell me when you had an industry, you deindustrialize your whole country just for a few dollars? That's what you want us to do? Deindustrialize it? Do you want us to take the treasury of China and divide it among a few people? They said, because they said, we Chinese, in the last 30 or 40 years, pulled 200 to 300 million Chinese from poverty into middle class. Right? Now, we went through it before, which you got to give China credit, but we understand that if you didn't get the food and the material from Africa, you wouldn't have done a damn thing. And it wouldn't, if you didn't get the industrialization from Russia, which we went through, from 1949 to 1973. Without Russia industrializing China, they put the foundation. And then the white people sold all their stuff off to China. So that's not taking anything away from China. But let's understand what happened. So what happened to China is going to happen to Africa. The industry is going to come back. And Africa is going to be the industrial center of the world by virtue of the raw materials in the side. Okay. So China said, you want us to do what you did. What you did was you took the industrial base of the United States that you inherited because everybody was down. You shipped it all over the world, and what you did was you impoverished your American population. So they say in the last 20 or 30 years, when we were able to pull up 32 or 300 million, because we used it on the people. You took the 200 million or trillion that you sold to us and you put it in your pocket. You got all these few billionaires here. He said, we pulled up 300 million people up to the middle class. And in the same period, 90% of your middle class had descended into poverty. It's descended into poverty. That's what you hear. Why is China? Because they didn't waste. This country, white people, there's so much abundance, so much food. They never had in Europe because that's what they were running from. War, famine, and no food. But they sell off their mother. So he's telling me, you now can't compete with me. You had it before me, but you gave it all to me because of little pittance, So he said, you're crazy. We brought up 300 million out of it because we worked our behind off with the help of Russia and the help of Africa, working with these two. They made us this giant. You had it. You were stealing from Africa. Africa built Europe. African built Europe and the United States. You were too damn stupid to hold on to it for longevity. You just sold it off quickly. One of the biggest, like Kissinger's, Kennan, he told the white people, he's white, if you want the United States of a country to be competitive in the future, you must take the best of what you got. Don't give a damn who they are. They didn't do it. They don't take your genius. They put all the little dumb white boys up into these universities. They don't study. They don't do a damn thing. How could you have the industrial base and you squander in such short? So the Chinese, they're laughing at it. That's what your people. They give hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions of dollars to these corporations. They're behind in the chips. They were leading. Why is the United States behind? Because 150 billion that they gave of your tax to these guys, instead of them going and in the lab working, they give it all to the CFOs in what you call the stock market, stock pension.
Outsourced.
So they have squandered.
BlackRock.
They squandered every damn thing. Okay, so that's what they told us. We're going to read this, then we're going to go to the pictures, and then we'll end it for question and answer. Now, we read this to let you know who's running the country. Okay, so to give you an overview, we're going to read it for those who can't have it. It takes about 5 minutes. But basically what it's telling you is, these white professors in the top universities did a survey of the legislation that was passed in this country in a 20-year period, federal, state, and city, on who the law benefited. Study. Now, you have it. You can go online and just Google it and you get your nice, clean copy. And it's not magic. And it says, study, U.S. Congress literally doesn't care what you think. Professor Martin Gillens, Princeton University. Most of these universities got started with the heroin money from China. You know about the Opium War. Opium War I, Opium War II was to China. Then Opium War III was Vietnamese War, when they were pumping all the drugs in through these dead bodies. Opium IV was, let me see, you have 2 wars with China. Opium War, Vietnam, they brought it in.
Korea.
I include the drugs that the pharmacy give you. They number toxins.
That's right.
The pharmaceutical companies, before they were pharmaceutical companies, they made iron, steel, rubber. Now all of a sudden they're making your stuff. So the medicine you get from the doctor is part of the Opium War. Opium War I and II against China. Opium War III was Vietnamese War. Opium War IV was Afghanistan, where they pump it all in. And Opium War V is the fentanyl. So when Afghanistan cut the poppy, start growing food, no more poppy, said let it in.
They invited them to the White House and gave them buildings, Bush,
We got some nice people living here.
to regrow it.
Okay, so let's read it. So you know these are white professors at the best university with the latest techniques, and they're not skewing anything. Professor Martin Gillen, Princeton University, and Benjamin I. Page, Northwest University, looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer the simple question, does the government represent the people? Their studies took data from nearly 2,000 public opinion surveys and compared it to the policies that ended up, I'm in the second paragraph, becoming law. In other words, they compared what the public wanted to what the government actually did. What they found was extremely unsettling. The opinions of 90% of the Americans have essentially no impact at all. Your mayors, indicted and non-indicted, your governors, your Congress people,
Great.
massive corruption.
Yes.
They documented it. Princeton University study in public opinion had nearly zero impact on the U.S. law. Gillen and Page found that the number of Americans for or against any idea have no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it a law. Okay. The preference of the average American appeared to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistical, non-significant impact upon public policy. One thing that does have an influence is money. While the opinions of the bottom 90% of the income earners in the United States have a statistically non-significant impact, economists, elite, business interests, and people can afford lobbyists still carry the weight. Just what Smedley Butler said. Nearly every issue we face as a nation is caught in the grip of corruption. They spend billions influencing American government. That's your federal, state, city. Remember what happened when Bloomberg was here? And he wanted a third term?
He got it.
And legally he wasn't going to, he said he put a chunk of money, right?
They gave everybody a piece of that money. The Negroes took it too.
Yeah.
And they gave themselves an extra.
4 years.
See, it got so bad in France one time, they just went in, took their heads off. The king and the rest of them. That must have been good. They spend billions influence American government. We give them trillions in return. In the last 5 years alone, the 200 most politically active, you see, the country needs X amount of dollars. The government used to get most of the money they needed, the central government in this country, to fight their wars or whatever the hell they want to do, up to the Civil War and beyond. So the private people said, why are we making the wars? Why the hell are we paying for it? So what was the date? Something like 1916, when they passed the federal income tax law? That's when they said, no, we're gonna make the people pay for this shit. That's why they passed it.
1920s, yes.
Whatever it is, we're gonna make them, so y'all wanna pay. Before we ain't paying for no more, we're gonna take the taxpayers' money, spend 10 times what Russia spends. We'll get into that another time. It's a scandal. In the last 5 years alone, 200 most politically active companies in the United States, these are the companies that get the money to bribe these because they're not paying the taxes. And the companies spend $5.8 billion influencing our government with lobby and campaign contributions. So they take $5.8 billion, split it among the Congress, the Senate, the president, everybody. How many of y'all got a piece?
Not me.
Didn't you ask the question? That's where all your tax money went. In these guys' pockets. Yachts and everything. Okay. Influencing the government with lobby. We almost finished. Those same companies got $4.4 trillion of your tax dollars. It's a vicious cycle of legalized corruption. To win a seat, then they go on. In return in return for campaign donation, elected officials pass laws that are good for their mega donors and bad for the rest of us. And then, you see, okay, as we wind down the presentation, I want you to look at this map. This, not a map, it's a flag. I didn't have time to give you the colored part of it. I'll do it another time. This flag, it's a Russian flag. You see what's on it? You see the figure? Now you take the next page after it. You see this part? See these two over here? You see over here, the comparison? The next page. You see that? You know who that is? This? Do you know who this is? That's your African god, Kinsu. Kinsu, one of your African gods along the Nile. Just like all countries that you see the eagle, that's Horus. Just like the Jews, the Israel and Ethiopia have the same flag. It's the double star. It's the North Star. And the North Star, there are two stars that revolve around each other. And you put the two stars together. If you look at a series of flags, the Ethiopian flag and the flag that Israel flies is a double star. This is your Dr. Kinsu. That's you. That's your culture. Goes deep throughout most of the world. And anything you can find it. So I use the Russian flag the next time I come, I'll give you a color copy. It's the God Council. That's why I put the two pictures, okay? The world uses your knowledge base and your foundation. God Council, the Russian flag. Then Putin he let the display go out. When the Roman Empire was there and the Germanic Church came and they knocked off the Pope in Italy, they split. Another one went to Eastern Orthodox, that's Constantinople. That group, that's all the Russian Orthodox, that part of it. So I just use this to tell you, the Russian flag they use in Kinsu. Almost any symbol you find, it comes from the continent. We have this, we're winding down. It's a cover of a book written by a young...
Okay, let me zoom in.
It's a cover of a book. The name of the author is Douglas Murray. Europe, the Strange Death of Europe. The Strange Death of Europe. Come on, you can find it now. There are 8 pages there. Okay? He happened to be a young British man who's telling you that the birth rate of Europe is negative.
Negative.
See what he's talking about to them?
They ain't making 2 kids apiece.
When you look at what it means to not be here in 200 years, they know what it is. I can't tell you what Richard Pryor said about how to reverse that, right? Africans are, you know what he said, right? And then he goes in there and he tells you why. For a number of reasons. Anyhow, he's homosexual. So you complaining about not having enough white babies and you're homosexual. But he's documenting here. We can go into the death rate, the thing. The last two are 2 maps of Africa. And I put it there to remind people. What we're trying to do is put in some things that they systematically go away. Here's a picture of Africa. And just give you the illustration that Australia, the United States, China, Europe can all fit in Africa. That's how big it is. 60% of the world's food is in Africa. We're going to repeat what Europe gets out of Africa and what China gets out of Africa. After Russia, the Soviet Union, industrialized China, People's Republic of China, from 1947 to 1970. And they picked up the technology for the whites. When the United States shipped all of the technology to factories, they collapsed the U.S. economy. That's part of why you got the homelessness. China, in order to make these bridges and everything, you need things. So that's when China's trade began to really, they were trading with Africa, but it really boomed after 2004. Because in order to make a bridge, in order to make anything, what are the 8 things that we went through before that the Europeans get from Africa? And why the Africans are cutting them off from there, and why Europe was going into depression. We'll go to that later. The same way that the United States rebuilt Europe, South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, where did they get the copper from? The iron. Where did they get everything from to rebuild Europe and the rest of it? Anybody got an idea? Huh? Africa. It's documented, but you will all understand that. So one of the 8 things as we wind down, we know. Africa's largest trading bloc is with Europe. What do they get from us?
Nothing.
Coal. No,
Yes.
let's see if we remember this. Oil, gas,
That one.
coal, and wood. Things for energy, right? Food. 60% of the world's food is grown in Africa. And when we put the Sahara Desert back to there, Africa has always been the center of the world. Okay. So we can know the 4 things we just named. The other 4 things is food, fertilizer to grow the damn food,
Awesome.
minerals, and uranium. 2 major things, something to eat and something for energy. You can't industrialize, you can't do anything. So when China said, look, we can't be this industrial giant making all these things, where are we going to get all of it? China has almost nothing. Remember we went through it that China is 1/3 of the Chinese. China has nothing.
It's sinking.
Everything that they got, basically, to make anything coming from Africa. That's how critical Africa is. Now, we had another map, but we'll go over it. If you take this map here, okay? This map. What Africa used to do is the Europeans were stealing everything from us. And then they steal it, raw material, they make things and sell it back, value added. So what did one of the French economists say? When and if Africa stops sending raw materials, wood, etc., to Europe, and they industrialize and build it for themselves, Europe is gone. Because that's how Europe survives. Europe survives on stealing and getting raw materials, dirt cheap, value added. So as Africa develops, when we go over, Europe is sinking.
Stealing from
The
people.
United States is sinking. Okay? That's what's happening. China says, look, 2004, when China builds something, they're getting it from Africa. So what the Africans are now doing, the ones who are not corrupt, the Nigerians, they're off the wall. They even talking now, Tinubu, the president of Nigeria, is an agent of the United States CIA. They all admitted it. You can forget that. The Ghana, who the president leaving, he said that he didn't give U.S. a military base. The rebels, he's giving. Boy, we got. The young people got to take care of more. That's something else we go. Okay. So understand that without the raw materials, China makes, what's this cars, the plug-in cars? Yeah, where's the lithium coming from? Where's the cobalt? All come from Africa. So if Africa shuts down the border, you can say goodbye to Europe and goodbye to China. And so the Chinese understand that Africa is going to replace them. So, we'll give you okay. What's this Huawei? The United States has a war against Huawei, the Chinese. So what does Huawei go to Burkina Faso and say, look, I'm going to build you a state-of-the-art factory to make these cell phones. Why does Huawei going to take the technology from China and build a massive state-of-the-art plan and educate and train 5,000 young Burkina Faso? And they're going to run what you call a wire that
Fiber optics.
fiber optics. They're going to do the whole fiber optic Burkina Faso. Why? Tell me why.
So they won't have no blowing up.
Huh?
Once.
Okay. It's obvious. Who's on the internet? The most people they say on the internet globally are the Chinese. Second,
Everybody's on the internet.
say that again?
Everybody's on the internet.
No, right, but they said that when they do the math, Chinese won, the next number is Europeans, and the third largest number are Africans. Now, if there's 1.4 billion Africans, now, by the year 2050, I'm still gonna be lecturing in 2050. I don't know about y'all, I'm gonna be right here. See, sometimes you gotta think positive. Every day you get up, you say, oh man, I made it another day. No, you gotta get up, I always tell people, well, try waking up dead. It don't work. But you get up, everything works.
Here we go.
And you
Well,
go.
that's suspect.
We're gonna do it.
Okay, so the point that I'm making is, Huawei knows that they're saying that see the thing about Africa and what's killing the United States and killing Europe is the population is young. So you have 1.4 billion, and in we in 25, 35, another 20 years, the population is going to double. 2.5 billion. One of the reasons we in America cannot buy anything is we drain out. We ain't got no money. We can't buy nothing. We're finished as a market. Who has the population going to have the wealth to have markets? Africa. You got 2.5 billion people, young people. They're going to need the internet. They ain't going to build a damn thing here. They ain't building nothing in Europe. What I'm saying to you is, if you are the rest of the world and you want to do trade, Africa is the center. So that's why Huawei is doing state of the art. 5,000. They say I'm getting in from the start. Now, one last thing before I end, I want you see this map? This is, okay, Will, questionnaire. You see, I outlined it, right? Look at this map that's got yellow. This is the last one. It's a map of Africa, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
You see that strip? That's called that's the Sahel. That strip is the desert is north, Sahara Desert, in the south is lush agriculture, swamp, forgot the name of it. That's the strip that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, those three countries, they're joining together, and we'll question and answer another time. What are they doing? This strip is bigger than the United States of America. Remember, the U.S. can fit in 4 times. The future is there. Okay? Because you have the natural resources, you have the population, and they're all young. Okay, other thing I want to point to your attention. You see this coast here? After y'all finish donating, if you put in, what you call these things you buy? Those lottery tickets?
Right.
We're not returning it. If it's a winning lottery ticket, we're not returning it. We're not returning lottery tickets if it's winning, if they put it in by accident.
Okay.
Look at this part of Africa. Here's Africa, right? This is east, west, correct?
Yes.
In the last 100 years, where was most of the activity in Africa? It was along the north and the west, okay? Because that's the proximity to Europe. Europe doesn't have a damn thing to benefit Africa.
No.
So you see what's here, right? Most of the two major industrial centers of the world is going to be this part of Africa, and what's the other major block? Asia. What I'm saying to you is Asia, China, Russia, blah, 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 and Africa are the two major centers that will have all the industry, all of the trade, okay? If you count the number of ports on the eastern coast, from Egypt all the way through Sudan, the eastern coast, all the way down to South Africa, there's about 25 ports. The Africans are modernizing all of the ports. Why? Because where is the big populations? Where is the big industry? In Asia, right? This part of Africa never benefited from the United States. This part of Africa never benefited from Europe. But this part of Africa, because Asia and Africa are the two biggest blocks, most of the trade that Africa is going to do outside of Africa, Africa is going to have two massive trading areas. Most of the trade in the next 10, 15, 20 years is going to be done in Africa. What's called African Free Trade Zone. You hear about that, right? African Free Trade Zone. This is another word. African
free trade agreement?
Say that again?
After the
No. African Continental Free Trade Zone. African Continental Free Trade Zone. So instead of Africa doing what the biggest trade with Europe, and then the second biggest trade with China, and then the third trade, the biggest trade they do with each other.
Right.
In 15 or 20 years, 30 years, most of the trade Africa is going to do is going to be with itself and with Asia. Ain't nothing happening with the U.S. and Europe. So right now, most of the trade with Africa, they do most of the trade with Europe. They're cutting that out. As Africa industrializes, they're doing the second most trade with China, because China needs it. It's going to get to a point in 10, 15 years that most of the trade Africa is going to be doing is going to be almost no trade with Europe, because Europe has nothing to offer. There's going to be almost no trade with the United States, because the United States doesn't have a damn thing to offer. Where the big trade is, it's going to be where the big population is: India, China, Asia, with the big population, Africa. So the two major centers of population and trade and stuff is the continent here and here. So right now, instead of this being number one, this being number two, and then what we do with each other is number three, in about 15, 20 years, there's almost going to be no trade to Europe, because Europe ain't got damn thing. There's going to be almost no trade on this side. All that trade we'll be doing in West Africa, we'll be doing with the rest of the Africans. And the other big trading block will be with Asia. Those are the two big trading blocks that whoever your children or grandchildren will see in the next 15 to 20 years. That's where it's at. So these countries along here are upgrading all their ports. So if you don't see what's coming, that's how you know what's coming. The big things. Now we're still here, we're still trying to eat and live, but you have children and grandchildren. You better link them some kind of way. Get them a skill, get them something. If they want to live a quality life, a decent life, with a chance, they got to get the hell out of here. Don't tell me about, oh, America, this and that. They got nothing here. They can't even fix the Golden Gate Bridge. They're asking China.
Yeah.
I mean, this ain't nothing. Oh, Dr. Lewis, he's bad-mouthing. How the hell you bad-mouth a country of Ice Age hunters with a suit and a band? That's what they are. Just what Chris Hedges said. So we here in America, we gotta survive and do everything we can. But if you understand where the world is going, it's already there. It's Africa. Your children and grandchildren, you're going to trade with each other here. You're going to trade here. Everybody's investing here. Burkina Faso. You got the Arabs, everybody's here. We can go into that in detail. That's what I'm trying to say here. God bless America. I'm finished. Now, let's break and you get it. Whatever time he'll give you left, we finish. So let them regulate. Ray, you're gonna regulate for them so we can get in as much as we can. Everybody please make a contribution.
We're gonna make this very simple. You going to the men's room or you want the...
No, I'm good. I'm all
We're
right.
gonna make this very simple. I don't want no whole long talking. Question, and if you want to put a monologue and say all this, it's going to be cut, because I don't want no arguments. The first one is going to be from the Zoom audience. Anybody from the Zoom have a question? They want to ask Dr. Lewis a question. And Doc's going to take 3 minutes to answer, not a half an hour.
Sound like a dictator, right?
Ray 2025.
He has a question.
Question, speak.
Yes, what kind of skills do you think, I could possibly teach or have my children learn here in order to take there to benefit?
As far as I only can speak for myself.
Okay.
Because I've been there and I've been around and I understand what's going on. The reality of it is for me, because I'm 81 years of age, I have to stay and help stabilize the grandchildren. But I'm making preparations to start putting certain things in place on the continent. You can go in the community, build a house. In other words, you can't run out of here. You gotta take care of your family here, because everybody isn't going.
No.
So what I'm saying is, you take care of your family here, and if you have excess, you start trying to build something over there. You buy a piece of land, and you work with a community. You work in a community. It's for your grandchildren. Whatever the skill you can bring to them, you got to build. There's no jobs here. There's nothing here. So the best answer to your question: take care of your family here. One of the individuals who went, he had 8 children. 4 went to the Gambia, 4 stayed. So the ones who went to the Gambia, let them build. The ones who want to stay, let them stay. You can't jump up and run, but if you see the long run, you owe it to your children to get some skills, get some money. There's land, there's tremendous opportunity, but you gotta have some skills, you have some money. Everybody's invested, the Arabs, everybody knows what's going on. Take care of yourself here, and then here and other places you plan. I mean, unless you got millions of dollars, to answer the question, take care of yourself here, get in the groups and talk about what's there. Don't listen to Trump talk about Africa as shit country. They don't want you to know what's going on.
That's right.
Okay, next question is from the floor.
He
Raji.
also said that.
Towards the end of your presentation, you said that Africa will be doing trade amongst themselves and the other parts of the populated world. Are you insinuating that the next future billionaires are gonna be big butt people with 15-inch elongations?
What I'm saying is this. There was a brother elder called Nana Dix. He would have been about 100 now. He's with Dr. now. He said, close down the borders. Don't let a damn thing out. Close down the borders. That's what Africa is in the process of doing. They're closing down the borders. You know how they're doing it? As a unit, they're getting rid of U.S. military bases. And all countries are saying, in order for us to be rich, we're going to take the what you call this thing, the cobalt, when you make batteries with, no, not only that, there's lithium.
Yes.
Lithium and nickel, those two. Instead of shipping them out, and let the Europeans and the Chinese use your lithium to make batteries, they're taking the lithium. They're not letting them take out the raw lithium. They're telling these big companies, European, no, we're going to refine the lithium. So we're going to, if you want some of the lithium, you can't buy it for pennies. When we're refining it, you're going to pay 10 times. And what South Africa, now maybe a lot of countries are doing now, they're withholding the minerals until they get the factories. So if you're a country and you want steel, we go into in detail, Burkina Faso, they're getting cement factories. They're making getting a steel. They're making their own railroad tires and their cars. So instead of you buying rails and the train from China and from Europe, they're making their own. So in other words, normally you want to get some rails and you want to get some caboose, train, you go to China or Europe. They're making the big bucks. They're not doing it. They industrialize it. So where Burkina Faso would have to buy from Europe and buy from China, they're industrializing. Who's going to make it? Themselves. So that trade they used to do they have to do that trade anymore? No. You do it within. That's how it's going to work. You will industrialize yourself so you don't have to go outside for a damn thing. So the Africans are now, you remember Roy Canton? What did he tell you? Africans helping Africans, right? Didn't he start that? How could he have said it any better? That's what it meant. Africans helping Africans. That's what they're saying. So right now, Africa was ripped by the Europeans, and China was getting the deal. Now you're coming back to Africa. Africa said, oh, wait a minute. You ain't getting nothing raw in the material. They're not letting the wood go out anymore. They're holding the wood. They're making the furniture. So they're making what they need for themselves and don't need Asian. Go into the Egyptian museum. Go into the museum in Sudan. Every damn thing you see in any store, they did it. Your ancestors did it. So they just get back and say, we ain't buying no more damn trains from China. We're not buying a damn thing from you. That's how Africa will do business with each other. That's how it's done. It's simple.
Yeah, brother.
Okay, so there's been like this inordinate number of brothers and sisters from the motherland that's making an influx into the United States, in the last few years. Would you say that the opening of these borders to the brothers and sisters may be a preemptive relationship strike from the United States to try to kind of like get them into the culture and then send them back home so that they can actually have an end with Africa in the future?
I can't answer the question. This I'm going to answer. Burkina, what's the tech company? I just remember Huawei. Huawei said, I want to build a factory, an industrial complex. 5,000. I'm going to train 5,000. Those young men and women trained is going to be better trained than anybody here. So Burkina Faso is going to they're going to make their own. And then another group is coming in they're making steel. Regardless of Africans still leaving the continent because there are no jobs for them. There's no youth. Kenya is a good example. 75% of Kenya are young people. 90% of the unemployment is young people. Why? They're not investing on anything to develop the people internally. People are not leaving Burkina Faso, now they're getting all kinds of factories. So yes, people will still leave because there's still relative poverty. How did this country look before we got here? What I'm trying to say to you, we don't have to worry about the number of Africans still coming here to do anything. Africa is going to have the youth, whoever stays there. In other words, why would you have to leave Burkina Faso if you're now getting all the training you want? They're getting pilot training, they're building hospitals. You won't have to leave. That's the best I can handle the question. Yes.
What's the difference in Africa now that that they have, like, what kind of protection do they have as opposed to before? Like, how are they sending the U.S. military out? What's different with the protection that they have in order for them to do everything in-house without people coming on the outside and killing everybody?
Excellent question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It depends upon where you go. You take the Sahel nations, those that you go on your map in this strip. This is how you have to bring your country under your control. See these Sahel nations? Here. You take these group of nations here. There was a coup, 2000 in Mali in 2020. They got rid of the leader. There was another coup in 2021 in Burkina Faso. And there was another coup in Niger in 2023. These are big countries. 90% of the country was overrun by jihadists. Jihadists are these people who were put there by the United States and Europe. They used them against Russia in the Chechen War. They used these jihadists against the Afghans. They used the jihadists against Syria. So after they knocked off Gaddafi, they took Gaddafi's weapons and other weapons and armed them. No, okay, I'm gonna say it. We were told in one of the missions that we attended, one of the missions of one of these countries. We were told, we knew it, but we were told where the French, up in Mali, there's a group of Africans who live in the desert. They're all colors and everything. They've been living among each other for thousands of years. The French come to these brothers and sisters, you don't want to be ruled by these blacks. Everybody's all colors. If you do this, if you cause this disruption, we will make sure you get your own little piece of land for yourself.
They can't get to them.
So in other words, you can't, he's a little lighter than this one. People, how the hell are they going to segregate you because of different colors? But that's what we were told that they did. They told us in the mission. So when these leaders of these African countries, working with the French, 70 to 80% of the country was overrun by these jihadists. You see this area from here to here? That's like going from New York all the way to California. These are big areas. Where did jihadists get jeeps, motorcycles, the oil, the intelligence. Well, the United States is, that base they had, that drone base, the United States used that base to coordinate the jihadists. So it's the French, United States, NATO, and the UN. They supply these people. These people were put there to cause chaos. In the northern, so in each of these countries, these jihadists really both work together. Jihadists and the white military, they work together. 90% of each of these countries, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, was overrun, call them jihadists. And in these areas is fabulous deposits of gold. So what the Europeans did was they put these jihadists here, blow up your thing, control the northern 80% of the country. And then it was these jihadists with the United States and Europe stealing your gold. They documented that $30 billion worth of gold was illegally taken out of these countries every year. That 30 billion of gold was shipped to United Arab Emirates. And then that gold gets into Europe and to the Europeans. France has the 4th largest deposit of gold on Ivory gold mine. So these jihadists were put there. So when these leaders took the country, these jihadists had machine guns, they had directions from the United States and Europe where to hit. So what they did was they made the coup and got rid of those African heads of state who was working in collaboration with the West. You can't fight jihadists with machine guns and you got a pistol. So what they did was they made the coup and they got rid of the US and the French. You say in order for us to fight these armed rebels, we need good stuff. So they got rid of them. They brought in Russia. They brought in China. We need weapons to fight these guys. So Russia and China supplied them, not with pistols, machine guns, armored vehicles, tanks, jet fighters, helicopters. Now the 3 Sahel nations have a combination of about 20 or 30 drones. Those drones now can survey the area. So in order to bring security to these countries, you had to first get rid of the United States and the Europeans. To hold a country, I'm not a military man, you got a person, brothers here, Graves, he can tell you about that. Each of the coup leaders were military men. They knew what they had to do. You take the United States, go out in the street, you have police, state police, park police, this police, National Guard, that's what they had to do. So now these Sahel nations, now after 2 or 3 years, they joined in the Confederation, and now they have recovered the northern, they're only about 10 or 15% of the northern strip is under the rebel. So in order for them to bring the country into safety, they had to build up the military. They bring up National Guard, etc., etc.
With the help of Russia and China?
You need weapons. You need to get, no, it's Africans who are fighting, but you need machine guns. You need tanks. You need drones. We can get into it later. That's how it is there at this point. And you're right, it's legitimate. You know,
Yes.
you can't just go into a country. You gotta understand, you gotta, like I said, in Vanuatu, we're there when they were fighting. We couldn't move certain things. So you see how it is. But it's beautiful.
All right, next. Next question. Anybody else?
When you plant your children there, you're planting your children and grandchildren into African countries that are safe and secure. There are many African countries who are just way safe than the United States here. Okay,
I think you answered her question beautifully, but in the a shorter version would have just been, they're pleasant each other to each other. That's what they're doing, in essence. Those three countries, they might stand alone, but now you got Algiers and other countries pledging to support them. So besides Russia and China, who's critically giving weapons, you have these three countries that are steadfast. And we haven't seen that before in our lifetime. You got three countries that are steadfast saying, if we have to stand alone, damn it, we're gonna stand alone, but we're gonna fight these European beasts. So that's where it's at right now. But I just wanted to buttress your point, Dr. Lewis, by saying, even things besides military stuff, even things like cocoa. You need cocoa to make chocolate. Every store you go into got chocolate. When Africans started producing that themselves, cocoa, either or in the Caribbean, you know, the Spice Island, you know, things like that. When they produce it themselves, the Europeans gonna have to come to them for candy.
but that's
Reese's, Hershey's, all that.
but that's what they're doing. They're saying we're not going to sell you the raw cocoa anymore.
Right.
The whole thing about keeping your development down is you do not allow them to industrialize. Once when you industrialize, it's ball game is over for Europe because the cocoa is going to stay there and you're going to be the center of the cocoa globally.
Right.
That's what the Africans are doing at this particular point.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and just to say about, well, you go to Africa, Africa is relatively safe. You can, okay.
Starbucks is getting their coffee from Ethiopia.
Yeah, okay, go on.
Keep it simple, John.
I don't want to go into a long session on this.
With all you said about Africa catapulting and doing what they're doing, how would the relationship between Africans there and Africans here, how would that would it benefit? Would it be better? Like how would that be? How do you think that would be?
Your relationship is going to be as good as you make it.
Okay. Because now
You got Africans there. You know better or worse the way you are right now than if you were in Ghana. If you were someplace else, you still gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta work, you gotta bring your money, whatever. The opportunities are there. There's no difference between you and them. The difference comes in your attitude. Somebody said somebody y'all know make a stupid statement. Oh, the people are going to Ghana because Ghana, the Ghanaians are different.
Yeah.
You think Ghanaians are different? This from the Burkina Faso, Mali, and all of that, what you call that big river, the Niger River,
Right.
the Spanish and English cut it, Nigeria here and Ghana there. You don't have to worry about that. You're not going into a war zone.
That's another way for them to keep us like separated by saying, oh, Ghana is more accepting than the other countries.
That's why you gotta study, you gotta go. And you see, we given long-range trends here. I didn't say to get up and go. I said stabilize your family and everything here. You can't leave your children, grandchildren, but you start putting down roots, the long range.
Yeah.
Dr. Clark has a home there. Nurse Clark has a home in Ghana. They put their roots down there. So, oh my goodness. I was going to make a statement about the Balfour. When you were stating about Israel and they're one of the biggest lies, they're saying that the people of North Africa, Morocco, gave them permission for the land in Israel to be established in 1917. And Malcolm X addressed it and said more or less, which king, which person gave you permission for the most fertile land there? Which African, which chief, which black person? Both of them. were implanted there.
Okay.
It was
Dr.
black
Lewis.
land.
Dr. Lewis, you,
Go ahead, Doc.
If you're talking, just correct now, if you're talking about you're talking about the start of what is Israel now, right? Is that what you're
Right.
dealing with?
If you look at the Peters map,
you asking
1916,
a
it
question,
didn't
huh?
exist.
Okay,
All right.
yeah.
3 minutes, answer that question and that's it.
If you look at the map, around 1900, you'll see the fact that the Turkish Empire had conquered that northeast corner of Africa, was under the Turks, Egypt. And a chunk of Saudi Arabia was under the Turks. Okay? After World War I, the Turks lost. So who's now coming into that oil-rich area? The British and the French. So after the Turks went down, you ever see the movie Lawrence of Arabia?
Yeah.
If you ever see Lawrence of Arabia, it was the thing around, okay. So after the Turks lost the war, the British and the French came in, and they said, we need a base in the area. Got all this oil. They're looking for resources. So in the Balfour,
Declaration,
when was the date? Give me the date.
1917.
After World War I, so it would be like 1918, 1919, 1920, 20, that whole area. The white people said, we need a base. And they created Israel as the base. Israel is nothing but a massive military base for the United States to keep their feet in the area. That's what Israel is there for. When they created Israel, the Russians thought they would be the number one, and then they would get influence. They were all fighting over the influence. That oil, you Saudi Arabia that's so rich with oil, the Turks were stealing the oil. When they lost the war, the French and the English wanted to have a post so they can get in there to steal the oil. You need a base there. So that they set it up 1947 or whatever it was.
48.
And then who was the upcoming power at that point? The French was going down. The British was going down. Who was coming up? U.S. So U.S. said, we're going to build up Israel as the military base. Just remember we said that the United States had that drone base in Nigeria to spy? You need bases to spy on people. You need bases to intimidate people. You need bases to invade people. So the United States used first the British, British established Israel, but couldn't hold on to it. So now the United States is using Israel as a military base for influence in the area. That's all that was about.
We got the last one. Last question, Zoom, floor.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Dr. Lewis that basically no country, no outside country can give anybody permission to invade another sovereign country. So that's why it's immaterial if this country or that country says, oh no, you go over there and do it. Because if you're going to invade Palestine and take Palestine, you're supposed to ask the Palestinians, can you set up a beachhead here? And then you just expand with the U.S. military, but that wasn't asked. They saw that this land was unprotected, to go back to the sister's question about protection, and they saw that it was unprotected, and that's why the big bully U.S. set up a military base there.
All right, Zoom. Go once, Zoom. Floor, last one.
Militarily,
Yeah,
there's no outposts, but
Yeah, and I think you asked a question and you got kind of stammy. I don't think I answered it for you.
No, you didn't.
Okay, tell us give us some information about it. With that question you asked to ask it?
I'm going to.
Okay.
You gotta let me in.
Okay.
All right, so I was talking about the influx, the inordinate number of Africans that's come over here into the United States. everything that you said in regards to Africa being the primary source of pretty much everything in the future, and so that they will be where everyone has to go for the market. So I'm saying that they're letting a large number of Africans over here in the United States. Do you think that that may be a preemptive relationship strike in which this is what they do? They bring people over to America and Coca-Cola and Kentucky Fried Chicken and everything and all the clothes we wear, and then they, sort of like they love this sort of life, and then they don't want the same life that they may have had when they go back. Do you think that that's a possibility of them using the Africans that they're letting over here to go over there later on so that they have a foothold in Africa for that market in the future? Because that's how they move.
The point is, I can't answer your question. The way I'm going to answer the question is,
That's what you said.
Africa, let's assume these numbers were, Africa has 1.4 billion. That's going to double to by 2050 or so. So what if 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 million of Africans are in America? That's not going to stop Africa. Africa's going to have 2 billion. They're going to have over 2 to 3 billion. They're going to have more than enough Africans. Africa is going to be built within Africa, regardless of how many people live. The white man, to answer your question, my personal opinion, the place is going to grow. And ain't nobody going to be able to stop it. Unless you bomb it out. What? So if a couple of million people, Africans come here?
Can I help him out there?
Yeah, help them out.
No, you ain't gotta help nobody out. We asked the question, that's it. Ain't no help nobody out. It's a simple thing. It's very simple, very simple. The man asked something, Doc answered it. It'd take too long to be going into all that. He can always come back and do what he gotta do, and that's it. We don't need nobody to be talking about this, that, and the other, or who's right or wrong. Doc said he couldn't answer it, and he explained it, and that's what it is. Any other question?
It was no disagreement.
It doesn't make a difference.
Sentence.
Doesn't make a difference.
I got one sentence.
What?
Is that okay? People are retiring and going back to their countries that they came from. There are more Ghanaian doctors in New York City than they are in Ghana. But they are building up their homes and so forth. They are moving back. My lawyer is moving back. They're building 7-bedroom homes.
Right.
And I visited these places. Why would I want to live here if I could live there like Jews do? Black men are living like Jews all over Africa.
Ladies and gentlemen, give Dr. Lewis a great big hand. Give yourself a great big hand. I'm going to cut the camera off. Now you can have whatever discussion you want to have.
Let me say this. Take Burkina Faso and these